So I was sitting around and I was trying to decide what video I wanted to do today, and I thought, what better than a Q&A. Starting off with Illogical Gamer, who asks, do you think NetherRealm could implement a way where gear could be transferred to the next game? I like the concept a lot. Unfortunately, I don't think anything like this will happen just because of the way that Injustice 2 gear was made. They're going to continue to progress the gear system in a way that it continues to improve. So taking the gear from Injustice 2 and putting it in Injustice 3 so that people could keep their progress is probably a bad thing, because a lot of that gear from Injustice 2 is going to be so much worse than the gear we would have in Injustice 3, especially when it comes down to characters like Captain Cold, who have very limited gear options, at least as far as variety is concerned. So it's not something I would expect, but if they were to do something like this, they could do it in a very sneaky way, like allowing you to have an epic gear set from a previous game, or at least one that's inspired from a previous game. So let's say I'm talking about Batman, and in Injustice 3, Batman has his recent epic set that was released, the one that everyone liked, the new setup that just came with the most recent patch. You could put that in Injustice 3 and allow people to unlock it for free if they have Batman level 30 in the previous game. Something like that might be a way to do kind of a system that you're talking about, but we're never going to get a system, or at least I don't think that we would get a system to be able to transfer all of our gear from Injustice 2 into Injustice 3. Do you think Ferritor was a test character for duo characters, similar to the way that Triborg was being a test character for TMNT? No, I don't think so. I don't even think Triborg was a test character for TMNT. Triborg was his own character and a very successful character at that, and the same thing goes for TMNT. So I don't know why people think about it like this. Really, the proper way to look at it is that the variation system was a test for TMNT, because that's all that TMNT is. TMNT is just a character with variations in Injustice 2. They're not really 4 different characters, they're just one character with a bunch of different variations, which is fine because that's all we wanted out of TMNT. If you go to Triborg, however, the same thing can be said. But not just about Triborg. The same thing can be said about literally every character on the MKX roster. Each of those characters are technically 3 characters, but they're not. They're just characters with different variations. But there are entire combos that become impossible depending on which variation you're in at the time. So I think it's pretty unfair to say that TMNT was a test character or Triborg was a test character for TMNT, and Ferritor was very much a uniquely designed character who probably is not a test character for any other character in the future. That's just my way of looking at it, because I don't think that game developers sit around testing ideas by throwing it into their finished game like Mortal Kombat X. I think more than likely they test these things behind the scenes and see how they go, and then decide if they want to design around that, rather than just throwing a character into a game and seeing what people think. What is your most disliked DLC character? This is an interesting question because I don't really dislike any of the DLC characters. I think they all work very well. But if I had to choose one that I dislike, the answer for me might be Hellboy. Not that I dislike Hellboy at all. I actually think the character is really cool. I think a lot of his gear is really cool, but the moveset and the playstyle of the character doesn't suit me at all. I tried learning it, I tried understanding it, and I get the idea of it. I get what you're supposed to do, but it's just not a gameplay style I enjoy. Which is a shame because, again, I like the character so much and I think his gear is awesome, and I would have loved to have gotten connected with the character a bit more, but his moveset just doesn't really work with me. Do you think that Frozone from The Incredibles would be cool for Injustice? Well, he would certainly be cool, right? Get it? Because he's an ice character. As far as his chances of showing up, probably not. I believe The Incredibles is owned by Pixar, so the chances of Warner Brothers being able to get access to that is pretty low, and it would be even more of a surprise than a character like TMNT, but I guess anything is possible. Honestly, I would probably see them adding like the Incredibles family before they added Frozone, and the Incredibles family would fight together the same way that TMNT quote-unquote fights together. But again, this is just a crazy hypothetical, which is probably never going to be happening. But yes, I would enjoy it. Have you ever thought about doing TV reviews? I'm assuming he's talking about the CW universe, because obviously my channel is very focused on the superhero stuff, and absolutely I've thought about doing it. CW shows are some of my favorite shows to watch on a week-to-week basis. I really enjoy them, but unfortunately I've tried uploading some of them in the past, especially over the crossover event and things like that, and it never really connected with my audience. That being said, it's hard to tell what are my viewers, like my core audience. It's hard to tell who they are and who's clicking on my videos who are already subscribed versus people who aren't subscribed. So it's possible maybe you guys would enjoy TV reviews. It's really hard to gauge that because the view count is lower on them, but that's possibly because I'm not bringing in enough new people the way I am with my regular videos. So maybe just try to give me an idea in the comment section if this is something you'd like to see in the future, and maybe I'll try it again. What do you think about Mr., and I am not going to try and pronounce the word. I know this character who you're talking about, it's just, I am awful at pronouncing most words, let alone, well, his name I should say, it's not really a word. And or Music Meister for Injustice 3. Both of these characters I think would be really interesting. It would be very difficult to actually make a moveset for them just based on the type of moveset that they would have to have. I don't know. yeah, it's a difficult question, and it's something that would be more suited to a game designer. It would be cool to see from a character perspective, because I like these characters, and I would love to see what they do inside of Injustice 2, but past that, I can't recommend them because I don't know what you would do with them. Now, again, somebody is cheating and presenting two different questions, but regardless, I'm going to go ahead and answer them. Are you happy with Legendary Gear for DLC and Legendary Gear in general for Injustice 2? In all honesty, I don't really care about Legendary Gear. It's not something that I pursue, although it's something I will be pursuing in the future. At the end of the day, most people complain about stats in general on Gear, but I think the Legendary stats look pretty cool, and a lot of the effects are really interesting. Obviously, some of them have some like weird variants, like some of them are really, really low tier in comparison to others, but I think it's more about the fun that you have with the Legendary piece of gear rather than how good it is. Also, do you mind overly reused intro and clash dialogues in Injustice 2? Absolutely not. The thing is, people go really quick to complain about some overused ones, especially when it comes to Batman, but people forget that the alternative is to go back to what we used to have in fighting games, which was the same dialogue every single time. If there was even dialogue at all, go look back at Injustice 1, go look back at any fighting game released in the last 10 years, and none of them come even close to the dialogue options we see in Injustice 2. So I think it's a little bit unfair to criticize that, when Injustice 2 is literally the best game out there for this type of voice interaction, as far as variety is concerned anyway. I complained about the last guy asking 2 questions. This guy is asking a lot more than that. Favorite movie, favorite game, favorite theme park, and favorite TV show. My favorite movie changes all the time. It depends on what I've seen most recently. I really enjoyed Spider-Man Homecoming, so I don't feel comfortable answering that question. But for now, we'll just say Homecoming because it was the most recent thing that I saw that I was really impressed by, so there you go. My favorite game, probably one of the Pokemon games just because of nostalgic reasons, and I enjoyed it so much. Favorite theme park, fun fact, I've never been to a theme park in my life, so I guess I can't answer that one. And favorite TV show, right now would have to be Lucifer. I'm having a ton of fun with Lucifer. I want more episodes to come out all the time. It's a hilarious show, and it's loosely connected to DC. But again, that one changes all the time as well. It just depends what I've most recently been into. I don't really like to box myself in and say that I have a favorite movie or a favorite game or a favorite TV show, but right now, those are the answers that I have. Obviously, they're all subject to change though. If you could get a Sonic character inside of Smash 5 besides Sonic himself, who would it be? I already answered this question in yesterday's video. I did a Smash roster prediction / wishlist thing. You can go check it out. There's a link in the description. There always is a link in the description to my more recent videos. And my answer was Shadow. I really want to see Shadow in one of the Smash games. If it's not Shadow, probably one of the good guys like Knuckles or Tails. I think either of them work quite well, but again, for me personally, it would probably be Shadow because the moveset you can come up with him is probably a little bit more diverse than what you can come up with for, say, Knuckles or Tails, but who knows, maybe they can come up with something super innovative for Tails or Knuckles. What is your favorite Premier skin? Hands down, it has to be Bizarro. Bizarro has an amazing Premier skin. It's one of the best ones by far. Just the amount of visual changes is incredible. I love the fire effect when you would normally freeze, and that's probably why you're watching some Bizarro gameplay in the background right now. If you had to replace one trait, what would it be? I'm assuming he's talking about Injustice 2. I'm gonna go with Gorilla Grodd. I like Gorilla Grodd and I like the aesthetic they tried to go for with him, but I think his trait is just kind of meh. It just feels like another ability that he could have had on part of his normal moveset, and I think there's probably more interesting things you can do with his trait. Like, what if it went into kind of an animalistic rage, and during that time his trait was up, he was passively healing? I just feel like the mind control trait didn't really do much, and it didn't really express the true nature of that ability that Gorilla Grodd has. So in a future game, if Gorilla Grodd somehow shows up, I would like them to revisit that trait and rework it. Do you think Liu Kang would be a great MK character for Injustice 3? I know a lot of people want to see Liu Kang in Injustice 3 if there's going to be another Mortal Kombat character, but in all honesty, I think Johnny Cage is a far superior pick. Johnny Cage can work in a lot of humor and joke around about the fact that he's a Mortal Kombat character in a different game, and he would be able to do that quite well, kind of like a Deadpool-esque character. And I honestly feel it's a little bit of a mistake for them to have Sub-Zero and Raiden in this game as opposed to, say, Sub-Zero and Johnny Cage. But hopefully that means we're going to get Johnny Cage in the next game. I don't think Liu Kang is a character you want to throw into an Injustice game just because of the type of character he is. You can look at a character like Sub-Zero or Raiden or Scorpion, and even if you don't play Mortal Kombat, you can understand the appeal behind that character, where if you throw Liu Kang into an Injustice game, to people who don't play Mortal Kombat, he just kind of looks like a regular dude. I suppose the same thing can be said for Johnny Cage, but at least least Johnny Cage has a certain aesthetic about him that very much makes him look like the character he is. You know a lot about Johnny Cage just by looking at him and his smug smile. Where with Liu Kang, you still don't get much of him. He just kind of looks like a normal dude if you don't know much about him. What lantern do you want to show up in Injustice 3 that we haven't had appear in a previous game? It was certainly an interesting question. I feel like my default answer would have been somebody like Jessica Cruz because I think they're an interesting character, but we're probably never going to see somebody like that over Hal Jordan or over John Stewart, so I don't think that's ever going to happen because I think they're always going to have a John Stewart or a Hal Jordan inside of whatever the most recent Injustice game is, and I don't think they would have two Green Lantern characters on the same roster because, well, it just feels a bit weird. You could say that Supergirl and Superman feels a little bit weird, but they managed to make that work and they both have interesting and different movesets, but specifically with Green Lanterns, I feel like it would be hard to make work. But perhaps maybe I'm wrong. And I always get corrected when I try to say this name because I always forget the dude's name, but the Orange Lantern, the Greed guy, I just think he's kind of interesting. I'd love to see what they do with the moveset with him. I think he would have a very interesting trait if done right, and it would certainly be a character I'd be excited about. If Legion of Doom or Injustice League were to show up in Injustice 3, which members would you elect? Wow, that's actually a really interesting question. I think you want Deathstroke in there. It's a shame we didn't get Deathstroke in Injustice 2, so I think you'd throw him in there just to be a part of the story. I would like to see Scarecrow in there, maybe even Solomon Grundy to see him return from Injustice 1. You could go with Captain Cold. You could get Sinestro back from Injustice 1 as well. Honestly, I could be here all day just listing off awesome villains who could show up in kind of a villainous faction. I do believe this is the final question for today's Q&A, so before I go ahead and answer it, I just want to go ahead and say thank you so much for the recent support. I'm returning back to a regular schedule of YouTube, so as always, I can't help but thank you guys because you're always there for me and I appreciate that. So, getting into the final question, do you think Smash 5 maybe will have a Labo character or stage, like in Smash 4, where they have Wii Fit Trainer? For people unfamiliar, Labo is kind of like a new Nintendo property thing that they're doing. I don't know. It's a bit weird, right? Because Nintendo gets away with doing a lot of things that don't really make sense just because of how big of a name they have and the type of company that they are. And I think a Labo character would go over quite well. I think a lot of people would enjoy it, but for me, I don't really see the draw in it. So if you're asking me if I want to see it, I'd probably go with no, because I don't really know much about it and I don't really get it. But if you're asking me to predict whether it's going to happen or not, you know what, I would probably lean towards probably, whether it be a stage or a character. Again, thank you guys so much for the questions this episode. Go ahead and leave a like on the video to show your support. It helps other people find the video as well, so you're helping me out in two different ways there. You're showing me your support, you're helping other people find the video. My name has been Bilbsy, and I will see you in tomorrow's video.